We're heading into the last stretch of the NFL season, and you know what that means. Playoff time. And as playoffs arrive, then we have to find out the teams that are contenders or teams that are just going to make the playoffs. And we know they're not going to do anything, but we still have to talk about them. And then we also have the teams that are just kind of have sorted themselves out of everything and they're not even worth mentioning anymore. But first, I'd like to say, if you enjoy content like this, enjoy NFL, that's all I talk about, then I'd appreciate if you subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Only have a month left. I've been kind of slacking lately, but I'm going to be on my shit come December time. Merry Christmas or Happy Hanukkah or Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you choose. But let's go over the tiers first. Contenders is obvious. Teams that are going to contend, that I believe are going to contend, for a Super Bowl. Also, if I sound a little sick, I'm a little under the weather. If you don't care, it's cancer and you're a dick. And if you do care about me, it's just the common cold. Don't worry about it. But again, contenders, teams that I think are going to make the Super Bowl. Not make the Super Bowl, but have the best odds to make the Super Bowl. On the fence, that's the name of the channel, first of all. But second, it's teams that it's hard for me to lean either way. Pretenders are teams that I don't think they're going to make it. They're teams that are going to make the playoffs, but I don't think have a shot at the Super Bowl. Playoff purgatory are teams that have a shot at the playoffs, but I don't really think anything's going to come of it. And then not even worth mentioning are teams that aren't even worth mentioning. And we'll just get the teams that aren't worth mentioning out of the way first. Panthers, obviously. Patriots, Giants, Saints, Jaguars. I think Bears to an extent aren't worth mentioning. I know 4 wins, but if they had some games go a different way, they just fired Matt Eberflus and just terrible time management at the end of that Lions game. But they just had so many losses, that could have went either way, that they could absolutely have a winning record right now if things went different, but they just didn't. Titans, not even worth mentioning. Raiders, not worth mentioning. Browns, not worth mentioning. Jets, not worth mentioning. I think that's the only... I'm a Cowboys fan, okay? So this is a little biased. We have 5 wins, all right? Now, is it likely we make the playoffs? Absolutely not. And even if we do make the playoffs, nothing's going to happen, There is a world. I think they only have like a 3% chance, but there is a shot. I'm going to put them in playoff purgatory, but don't take this one too seriously. It's just as me being biased, okay? So do not take this one too seriously. We're going to go to playoff purgatory next. Teams that, have a playoff shot, they're not completely dead, but I just don't think anything's going to come out of it. And I think a team that perfectly describes that are the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins... Again, they're alive, but I don't think anything's going to come out of it. It's unfortunately how their season started. I just don't really see them making the playoffs, though. It's the kind of similar to the Cowboys. They kind of have a shot, I guess, but it's just not likely. If they make it in, I do think they're one of the only teams in this category that could make a splash. I didn't mean for that to be a Dolphin pun, but it was. I think they can make a splash just how overpowered their offense is. And their defense hasn't been that bad either. But, again... I just don't see it really happening. Next team up, I think the Cardinals fall into this list. I don't think anyone's thinking of the Cardinals as pretenders or contenders. I just really don't think they have that. They just don't have that title for them yet. That I don't think no one's thinking of the Cardinals are going to win the championship, They might make the playoffs, but it's just no one's taking them seriously. And I think that also applies to the Rams. The Rams might make the playoffs, could make the playoffs, I guess, but it's not like no one's expecting anything of them. I guess that's what this tier is. It's just there's no expectations for these teams if they do make the playoffs. I think it also applies to the Bengals. It's tough for them. I think they're playing good football, but I'm not taking them seriously anymore. I can't do it. Depending how this Cowboys-Bengals game go this week, if the Cowboys can go 6-7, they have a legitimate shot. Is it going to happen? No, but it could happen. And that's what this is all about. I think the Colts also end up in this list, in this tier, as well as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think these teams have any expectations to them. Their playoff hopes are somewhat alive. There's just no expectations for these teams. And maybe I should fix that. Playoff purgatory with no X. How do I spell that? Did I spell that right? I think I spelled that right. Yeah, I just don't really expect anything from these teams. So that's why I don't think they're not as bad at the not worth mentioning tier, but I just don't think they should be in the conversation for a Super Bowl. I don't know how I want to go about this. I could just go by the order I have at the bottom, or I could go pretenders first, on the fence about them, and contenders, but I'll just go in the order I have down here. The Vikings, I'm kind of on the fence about them. If I could put them in the middle, I would put them in the middle. but I am definitely leaning more towards pretenders than contenders. I'm going to put them in pretenders because I only want to have one team on the fence. Yeah, I just don't really see this team competing for a Super Bowl despite their record. Despite their impressive record, I just don't really see it happening. In my mind, there's just no universe in which they win the NFC. I just don't see it happening. Two AFC West teams I want to have right here. I want to say it's impressive that they're even up here. Going into the season, I thought they wouldn't even be competitive. I do prefer watching the Broncos than the Chargers. I think the Broncos are a lot more exciting, and I do have the Broncos ranked above the Chargers. Don't think there's enough from either of these two teams to warrant playoff expectations, to warrant them going to a deep playoff run, warrant them being scary, and I just don't see it from them. All right, next team up, I want to go for the Texans. I just don't believe in the Texans whatsoever. Texans are not contenders. They're 100% pretenders. I will bet my whole life's money they will not make it to the Super Bowl. They will not win the Super Bowl. They might win a playoff game, but they will be out by the divisional. This team is just so inconsistent. Stroud has been inconsistent. Azeez Al-Shaair is a fucking hitman that wanted to kill Trevor Lawrence. And I just don't really believe in this team whatsoever. And I've said it from the start. I mean, who cares about my opinion, right? But I've said it for the past few weeks. I just don't think that this team is that good. And this team is that scary. At the start of the year, their expectations were high. Now they're 8-5 or whatever they are. Coming off bad wins, bad losses. And I think this team is just not good. And I just don't see them even close to contenders. I'm not even on the fence about them. I just don't believe in them whatsoever. And I will also say the same thing about the Steelers. Although, yes, they're 9-3, and yes, they're top of the division, and yes, they've beat the Ravens. I just don't view them as a contender. And I know you don't either. I know in your mind, you can't, in this pretenders tier, close your eyes and try to envision these teams holding up the Lombardi Trophy. You cannot. You cannot tell me you can view Russell Wilson holding up the Lombardi in like, you just can't tell me that. You cannot tell me that you think these teams are going to hold up the trophy. You cannot. And don't even try to tell me you can. Same thing applies to the Falcons. Same thing applies to the Commanders. And same thing applies to the 49ers. I think you can even put the 49ers down here. I don't really mind. I'll keep them right there. These teams right here, just close your eyes for a second and try to envision them holding up a trophy at the end of the year in February. Try. You cannot do it. You cannot tell me you can imagine Kirk Cousins or Jane Daniels holding up the Lombardi. These teams just aren't going to make the Super Bowl. I feel bad. You know, they've had semi-good years, but you don't need a good year. You need a great year in order to make the Super Bowl. I will say the Packers, these are the three teams I'm most on the fence about. The Packers, the Vikings, and the Chiefs. I will say all these three teams, I'm leaning more towards pretender. I'm leaning all of them more towards pretender. But these are three teams that I just can't get a good grip on. I can't get a good grip on who they are. The Packers, I just finished watching the Lions-Packers game, and I just don't think the Packers have what it takes to beat the Lions, especially in Detroit, which Detroit is almost certainly going to get home field advantage in the NFC. Detroit's a hard place to play in, and I just don't really see them beating Detroit. I think there's only one team in the NFC that has a shot against Detroit, and we know who that is. I don't think it's the Vikings, and I don't think it's the Packers. So I'm on the fence about them, but I am leaning more towards pretender. And I don't know why the Seahawks are here. The Seahawks are absolutely pretenders. The Seahawks have no shot, zero. They could be first in the NFC West all they want. You cannot tell me you see Geno Smith holding up a Lombardi at the end of the year. You cannot tell me that. But yeah, these are the best four teams in the NFL right now, and I don't think it's even close. I think all three... Was that a voice crack or was that not a voice crack? I don't know. But I think these four teams are on a tier of their own, especially the Lions. I think the Lions are easily the best team in the NFL. And I think you can argue that, I'm going to put them in order right there. I think you can argue the Eagles are the second best team in the NFL. I wouldn't mind that. Also, if you want to have the Bills here, whatever. But I think these two teams right here are your favorite to win the Super Bowl. It's going to come down to what are they playing? New Orleans? Where's the road to New Orleans go, right? And right now in the NFC, it's going through Detroit, AFC, it's going through Kansas City, right? For Kansas City, it's just, they have some sort of voodoo black magic about them, right? Bullshit what they did. It was bullshit the way they played the Raiders and were able, the Aiden O'Connell fumble or whatever it was whistled dead and they still got it. And it's just like, man, I just don't like the way this team wins games. And they do not win games dominantly, ways that you're not scared. It's just Kansas City always goes down to the last drive. Always. Even against bad teams. Even against the Raiders. Even against the Panthers. Teams that they should be blowing out as a Super Bowl contender, and you're just not. It's just they have some sort of black magic. They have some sort of deal with the NFL, with Taylor Swift, that they have to be in the Super Bowl. So it's hard to put them on the fence, but I am, just because their caliber of their wins, I'm not impressed by. I think they're very similar to the Texans. I'm not impressed by their wins. I think the Chiefs are just Texans with the most luck in the NFL. I think that's what they are. Those 4 contenders are your contenders. Those are the 4 most likely to win the Super Bowl, in my humble opinion. I'm not going to take the Chiefs too seriously, but it's hard not to when you're, 11-1, and the road to New Orleans goes through you. And along with the Packers and Vikings, again, I just don't really see them beating the Lions at home. I think the Eagles are the only team that are even comparable physically, having Saquon, that good offensive line. The secondary in Philadelphia, has been extraordinary. You have those white guys, Cooper DeJean, is it Robert? I know it's Blankenship. Those are 2 guys that are sneaky athletic. You would trust them around your daughter. First one in, last guys out type guys. I mean, those are great guys. Is it? Okay, I don't know what's first. Blankenship and Cooper DeJean, those are great guys. Those are my 2 favorite Philadelphia Eagles players. For no reason. The Eagles are the only team comparable to the Lions in physicality. I think the Lions are the most physical team in the NFL, but I think the Eagles aren't that far behind, especially behind Saquon in their run game. But yeah, I think those are the only 4 teams at the top that are even worth mentioning for a Super Bowl. And it's just for Baltimore and Buffalo. Josh Allen and Lamar need this. They need this. Lamar has the MVPs. Josh Allen very well might win an MVP this year, but they need this. They need some sort of playoff success, because the Lions, they just kind of got here. They had last year was kind of their first year serious playoff contenders, and they made it to the NFC Championship game. The Bills and Ravens have been there for 5 years, 5-6 years, and they just haven't gotten over their hump, and they need to get over the hump. It's necessary for them to get over the hump. The rest of the NFL, they're kind of young. Vikings, Packers, are not really too much expectations from them. But I think the teams with the most expectations on them are the Bills and Ravens. And I think they have a lot of stress on them. And if they don't win, I think I don't know, something needs to change, because you kind of can't be in that Super Bowl purgatory for too long. But yeah, that's my list for contenders and pretenders. Let me know if you enjoyed. Comment what you would change. Comment where I'm an idiot. If you're a Steelers fan, you're probably upset. But again, I'm trying to reach 100 subscribers by the end of the year. If you enjoyed the video, let me know. Really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, Happy Ramadan. Thank you for watching, and I love you.